I'm really digging that music. All right, welcome to the College Football Corner. And we are loaded with all kinds of interesting topics today, games nonetheless, but CFP shakeups, possible upsets, and games being canceled. Ohio State, obviously, just last night or yesterday afternoon, canceled for COVID on their team. So we got a lot of things to talk about. Real quickly, I want to remind everybody, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe if you haven't already and click the bell for notifications. If you're watching on Facebook, make sure you like our page and follow us so you can get all the notifications on upcoming shows on the Fletch Entertainment Network. We finally got the second interview with Mark Gow done a couple of days ago, so that's on demand if you want to watch that. Also, the food truck show is coming, but more importantly, I'm really excited about tomorrow. It's the premiere episode of What's Up, which is my monthly show on helping you go out and see what's in the night sky from an astronomical point of view. Astronomy is one of my hobbies, has been for a couple of decades. So I want to gear the show towards people to be able to walk out naked eye or with binoculars and see things. So you don't have to worry about getting a telescope and setup and stuff like that. And you'd be amazed at what you can see naked eye, let alone just with binoculars. It's really cheap binoculars, like 10 by 50s, get them for like $25. You can see really neat things. This coming month in December is going to be really awesome to kick this off because Saturn and Jupiter are getting closer and closer as the month goes. And by the end of the month, they're going to look like one big white ball to the naked eye, that they'll be that close to each other. And that hasn't happened in like 800 years. So lots of neat things for the night sky. If you're into astronomy at all, have you ever wondered about looking up, tune in, and you might be amazed at what you were going to be interested in going out and seeing in the night sky for the whole month of December. So more importantly about the college football, Randy, how was your week?
Well, it's been pretty good week. It's kind of a little bit crazy towards the end here as far as college football goes. We found out that the Saban tested for COVID and he's going to miss the Iron Bowl, and then we found out yesterday about Ryan Day, and then a little bit later on in the day we found out that they canceled that game for Ohio State. So the end of the week as far as college football went didn't go so well, but and we were talking a little bit earlier. I think that I think the Saban thing has a pretty big effect on that game. And I was telling you earlier that I thought the leadership, the discipline, and the intensity that he brings is going to be missed in that game. And you just never know what's going to happen in an Iron Bowl. I've learned that the hard way.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe any other game, I would be like, yeah, it'll be all right, but I know he doesn't call plays, but you're right. He does kind of set the tone and he kind of keep things in check to keep the coordinators from maybe going off kilter a little bit. But being in the Iron Bowl, I would, I'm surprised, like you mentioned a little earlier before we came on live, that Vegas's line is coming down. Do you say it was like 9 points now? It's like,
yeah, I've seen some different things. They opened at 13.5. I've seen it's come down about 3 points. I've seen one line. It was down to 9. So, people obviously are seeing that. We know what kind of difference that can possibly make.
Right. And to my knowledge, just historically, Gus Malzahn's got a running offense type of game. So, I think obviously Alabama's defense is a little more stepped under the pass than the run has been, with what Ole Miss did doing and stuff. But that was weeks ago.
Yeah.
So we'll just see. I guess it's really come down to matchup and players, and fumbles, turnovers, kicking game.
Turnovers are really big.
Yeah.
And I know that we talk about the rankings and all that kind of stuff since they came out this week, and I found out something kind of interesting that I wanted to bring up because I have Florida ranked pretty high on my list, and the more I watch them, the more impressed I am with them. And I know that Texas A&M beat them, but I got to looking at that game, and one thing that just kills a team actually happened in that game. I got to look and I thought, well, Texas A&M beat them. Let's see what happened. Well, A&M was like 13 for 15 on third down. So literally, they kept Florida off the field, which that's the way you beat that kind of team.
Sure.
So, and that's incredible. That is deflating to the team in every way. Oh, yeah, hey, we got 3rd and 8, first down. We got 3rd and 7, first down. So that right there, that's why Florida. That's why Texas A&M won that game. I was looking at that. Other than that, I think Florida is a better team than Texas A&M, even though they lost that game. It was like 41-38. But that 3rd down conversion thing just kind of amazed me.
Oh yeah, I remember watching that game, and as I was watching the game, I'm rooting for A&M just because it's more of an underdog thing, not really having a dog in the race, so to speak. But I completely agree. Since then, Florida has been on a tear's pace, and I feel like if they played that game again, I think Florida might win. But you never really know because Jimbo Fisher must have, I would say, put a heck of a game plan together with his coordinators to be that successful on 3rd down. And you're right; those are drive killers. Your defense is expecting to get off the field. They're on there for another 3 or 4 downs, and then so on, kind of snowballs. You look at A&M, and I'm not a big believer in A&M. I don't know why, because the only team they've lost to is Alabama. If they don't lose that game, which I'm not saying they shouldn't have won. I mean, of course they lost that game, but if they don't lose that game, they're undefeated, and they have beat Florida, which but albeit how it looked on paper and stuff. So I'm happy with where they're at. I think Florida is a better team than A&M, and I think both those teams are probably the 2 best teams that are sitting on the outside of the top 4. And I personally, being an Ohio State fan, I can literally admit that I think Florida is a better team than Ohio State right now. I don't know if A&M's a better team than Ohio State. I'm not saying they're not. I just don't know. But in my opinion, Florida's playing better football. And I was talking earlier, Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, and I'd say even Florida would all give quite a headache to the Buckeye secondary with the passing game.
Hey, I can't believe this, man. We have an honest and bipartisan Ohio State fan here. That's unheard of in these parts.
Well, that's why we did this. We talked about doing this show last year. Was people talk about how we don't play the favorites? We call it like it is, and it's just the truth. Ohio State last year, excellent team. Their defense was locked down. They didn't give hardly. I don't think they had give up. I think I heard them say last week they gave against Indiana. They had 5 plays over 50 yards. They didn't have any last year in the regular season. So they're just not the team. They don't have the secondary. They all went to the NFL. Alabama sees that. LSU sees that every year. Clemson sees it. And Chase Young, and they haven't really replaced those guys with guys that are pulling the duty. Now, can they fix that? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they got good talent there. It's just a matter of getting it done. That safety last week just kept biting on the ugliest plays. Over his head. That Freifogel, the guy caught everything that they sent his way. So, hats off to Indiana. It was a heck of a fight. And luckily, Ohio State for us, I just say they came out ahead, but they got to play better than that. I watched that game going, I'm glad we won. And if that was a national championship game, you're like, well, at least we won it, but it wasn't. So it's like, you got to play better than that if you're going to play better teams than that. There's no doubt. So on the ugly card this weekend, I know I didn't put it on the list of games we're going to talk about, but we really do need to give just a little bit of shout out to somebody's going to win the game between Michigan and Penn State. So,
oh boy,
but Penn State will win to get them a win because Michigan's got 2, but very ugly game. So let's get into some games here. Let's go ahead and start off with the Iron Bowl. This classic matchup, throw all the records out, all that. This is historically in the last so many years a Gus Malzahn job-saving game sometimes, but I think Alabama's rolling, barring injuries and turnovers, which these games usually have the turnovers. Hopefully no injuries. Guys like you and I never want to see injuries,
right?
Especially to your star players. It's a killer. You want to see the best be out there. I think Alabama can win this game by more than 2 touchdowns, honestly, in my opinion. So that's what I think that will happen. But being more of an SEC guy and an Iron Bowl in particular will lay this game out for us.
Well, I think it looks that way that Alabama would win this game by, like you said, possibly a couple touchdowns or even more. But knowing that it is the Iron Bowl and the crazy things that happened there, like last year 2 pick sixes and I know Mac didn't have the experience that he has today. And then, of course, the kick six a few years back that another nightmare of mine. But you just what worries me is I just all the years that I watch this game, you just never know what's going to happen.
True.
Normally if there's a blowout, it's going to be Alabama winning that game. But I tell you, man, and I know LSU is down this year, nowhere near the team that they had last year. But what Auburn did to LSU was pretty dang impressive. I mean, they really they looked good. They played well. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens. Obviously, the Auburn quarterback's awful confident about this game, but sometimes talking just don't cut it. So we'll see what happens. But I'm not surprised if something crazy happened. If it's a really close game, wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, the trick plays come out, the kitchen sink game, so to speak. Gus Malzahn definitely has an unconventional offense. There's a lot of heavy run, and those two teams recruit well, so the players are tough. It's always a fun game to watch, and I've spent many times rooting for Auburn, obviously against Alabama being who they are. A lot of people love to root against for them, but in this game, I'm picking Alabama. And I'm not really rooting for either one other than the one I picked, and that's mainly because, you don't want to see teams that should be better losing too late and kind of maybe not getting in, kind of a thing. Because then,
right.
If Alabama don't get into the CFP, it's like they're still one of the best teams. So but I mean that's weeks away from that even being a possibility. So we also got I picked up Florida and Kentucky mainly because Florida's playing excellent football. They're like on the outside looking in, even though they're behind A&M. I don't see Kentucky even giving them a fight in this game because it's at Florida. If at Kentucky, I think Kentucky might be able to fight a little bit. They're not the pushover Kentucky. We've talked about this many times, but I just think Florida's way too much for Kentucky. I'm assuming you probably agree, but.
Yeah, I do. I don't know if this will be as bad as what Alabama did to Kentucky. That just kind of snowballed for Kentucky, and it just got worse and worse and worse. I don't know that that's going to happen, but I don't. Certainly, I don't think Florida's going to have any problem in this game. I think they easily probably win by 3 or 4 touchdowns easily. So. Yeah, that's not going to be much of a game. It's just a matter of how many points Florida's going to win by.
Sure. I agree. And then I picked LSU and A&M with both those games. If Florida or A&M lose, then that definitely opens the door more so for the other team in case somebody like Ohio State were to tumble, or even one of the other 3 in the top 4, or if Ohio State can't get in there because of them not getting into the Big Ten championship game. All those, some scenarios are starting to open up now with Ohio State not having a game. So Oregon lost last night. That doesn't help the Pac-12 at all. Their big game was going to be undefeated Oregon and undefeated USC.
Right.
That game is going to happen now. So it's going to be at the best one loss Oregon, and they lost a bad team. So, but it was a rivalry game. So,
right.
If LSU can literally play spoilers and put something together, I don't think it's going to happen, but I do think they'll play good. I think it's going to be a lot closer than UK and in Florida. So if either one of those 2 games would be an upset, I would pick this one as a possible upset this week, but not probable. So what do you think of this game?
Yeah, I think that LSU is playing certainly better now than how they started out. I think they got off to a rough start, which is not a good thing in college football. But I'm kind of really interested in seeing this game. I really want to pay real close attention to Texas A&M to really see how they look, how powerful that at least I personally think that they are compared to the Florida and the Alabamas and the SEC. And maybe I'll be surprised, but like you, I think this game's probably going to be a pretty good game. And I wouldn't be surprised if LSU wins this game. If they do, course, that's going to put a big blow to Texas A&M, and I think that pretty much knocks them out completely.
Yeah.
So Texas A&M has to win this game, and it is certainly a test for A&M. So I'm looking forward to watching this game and, just, like I said, paying real close attention to how A&M looks.
Yeah, I completely agree. A&M, they have no shot in the SEC, almost certainly, to get to that championship game. So they're hoping to be a second team in from the league. So any loss would be devastating for that purpose for sure. But I think it's going to be probably one of the better games today. Notwithstanding the Iron Bowl, if that ends up being a traditionally great game, which it very well could be, I think LSU and A&M is going to be a really tight game, fourth quarter. So, we talked about Iron Bowl not having Saban. There's going to be a little bit of storyline there, and we'll see how it plays out. And yesterday we had some games. Maybe next year we'll do this show on Friday after Thanksgiving, just in case. So there's some pretty decent games yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
I watched a lot of Notre Dame, and they looked good. I think they're a solid number 2. North Carolina played great, but in the end, they got blown out. And I think that pretty much is the state of those two teams up and down the field. I mean, North Carolina put a touchdown drive together, and it was like 2 plays later, Notre Dame was on the goal line. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm watching a Big 12 game for a little bit. So we talked about Oregon losing to Oregon State, I think it was, the Beavers.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's who they are. And then
one of them is.
Yeah. And then, of course, Ohio State being canceled is, so when it comes to, the CFP, the way things play out, Iowa State, congratulations to them. They had a big win yesterday, knocking out Texas, and they look to really be solidified into the Big 12 championship game and who they're going to play. Looks like it would be, I think, Oklahoma, because of Oklahoma State getting beat, but we'll have to see that with Oklahoma not having a game this week. But I think OU has had 5 straight years of winning that conference, so this is going to be obviously a new year for a new team in that league. Unfortunately, I just don't think they're going to be able to get into the CFP. So
no,
but still a good win for them, moving forward. So we're looking at, if we literally eliminate the Big 12 and the Pac-12, which I think is a good percentage of a possibility on the CFP, we got 3 leagues in a 4 spot race. So
right.
almost certainly someone is going to get a second team in, unless they feel Cincinnati or BYU, which are the 2 bigger non-conference or non-Power 5 teams that are sitting outside. BYU is way back in the standings, which a lot of people had problems with, and I know they're undefeated, and I know they've played some good football, but they just I don't see the resume. I think Boise State was the only team they've played that was ranked, and they weren't ranked that high.
Right.
So it's no offense to BYU, but you really do have to play somebody, and I know it's not their fault they haven't played anybody because COVID. They're just their whole season got killed, and they've played a ton of games, which is to their credit. They're like 9 or 10 games I think they're going to end up playing. But I think it's more likely that the ACC with Notre Dame and Clemson, and even the SEC with Alabama, Florida, it's really going to be hard to keep one of those teams out for a Cincinnati and for or BYU. Now, how do you feel?
Yeah, I think so. I think that a lot of the top teams are probably better than BYU and Cincinnati. Of the 2, I think Cincinnati is the better team, in my opinion. But what's the thing is, you're talking about the conferences and possibly getting 2 teams in. One, the ACC has a great possibility because we've already seen a great game between Clemson and Notre Dame, and they're going to play again. And so if Clemson wins that game, what do you say then? Hey, we have 2 and 3 or 2 and 4 or whatever they're ranked at. Both had 2 great games and they split. So are they? Should they both be in the top 4? So that'll be a debate there. And then the same thing with Florida and Alabama in the SEC championship. Regardless of what happens today with Alabama and Auburn, if Alabama beats Florida, they're still in, even if they did lose today, I think. And then, of course, if Florida wins, that's gonna be a whole nother can of worms. Well, okay, well they were number one, but now we think Florida has turned into probably one of the top two teams in the country. So is Alabama 3 or 4?
Oh
So
yeah.
it'll be it'll get real interesting. Going back to Iowa State, and like you said, congratulations to them. They just every year they seem to pull off a big upset win, and they've got a very solid program there. I think that it ends up being OU in Iowa State. Yeah, I actually think OU is a better team. Um, it will be in the championship.
You think you think? Oh, it certainly could be. So that would be a good game, obviously. And if for Iowa State to have them to beat, then you're talking about you're knocking off the 5-time champion,
Right, right.
versus somebody else and stuff. So that would be, and I think that'd be the best game. Obviously, watching the Big 12 the whole year, I think the games that OU lost, they were what they were, but they still, one of the better teams in the Big 12. And Iowa State, like you said, the last so many years, they've kind of steadily grown that program. They've knocked off a couple of games where they were upsets, and they've kind of put a stamp on the fact that they're growing that team so when I think if they don't get it done this year, I think they lose a lot going to pros. Like Purdy, the quarterback, just senior and stuff. So can they sustain all that? Because the bigger programs, they got guys coming in behind everybody. So we'd see if they're not a juggernaut in the recruiting ranks, but obviously they play great football. So, but that would be a interesting game to watch for sure.
Well, I would definitely pull for Iowa State. Just like you said, I mean, that's kind of just see some new blood in there and see some more happening. But I just think the way Oklahoma's playing right now, I think they'd probably have their hands full.
Oh, absolutely. I certainly agree with that. I was looking over some of these CFP, the projections and the layout and the possibilities and stuff, on what could happen and what could, it's very interesting. And, as a Buckeye fan, a lot of things don't look in favor of Ohio State, which I can admit, and it's not on the field necessarily. Like I said, Ohio State's offense has looked fantastic, and they do have tons of weapons on offense, passing and running, even though they don't have a J.K. Dobbins. Their running game looked really good in their last game. The last game was their best running. They ran for 200-something yards. They just gave up 500 yards in the air. So,
they rushed for over 300.
Oh, 300 yards. So, but okay, let's look at the SEC. Alabama undefeated, great win against Georgia. That's so you're looking at, are you undefeated, and also who's your best win? Well, that's where Ohio State's best win's Indiana, and up until if they get to the Big Ten championship game and play Northwestern, if that's how it shakes out, because they're undefeated, that'll be their second big win. Still not a marquee win, but we don't know what Northwestern is going to be by the time we get there. Right now, I think they're 8. So it could be a better win for them. But then they're going to need it too, because if Florida, wins out and beats Alabama and Alabama's undefeated, now you've got Florida with one loss, which is A&M, and Ohio State, let's say they're undefeated, so they don't have a bad loss, but their best wins Northwestern, Indiana. And here's Florida already beat Alabama and beat Georgia, right?
Right.
So it's like, that looks really good for Florida to get in for sure. Having won the SEC, they're in. And Alabama with one loss to the SEC champion, that's not a bad loss. That's a loss to a top team. So I would give the nod to Alabama there, even though it's over a conference champion, because this year the conference champions, they're out. I don't know if they're going to mean as much in certain leagues. And then the SEC, Notre Dame beats Clemson again. Clemson's done, and that's just Notre Dame getting in. But if Clemson avenges that loss, then how can you tell Notre Dame, look, man, you guys ran the table, you didn't blow everybody up, but you had great convincing wins, and it was a double overtime win against Clemson without Trevor Lawrence and a couple of guys on defense, and then Clemson's avenged their loss. So can you literally look at Notre Dame and say, you're done. I mean, I don't know how you could do that because they are a really good football team. And I think, honestly, they're better than Ohio State. Their defense is really good.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ohio State, as an Ohio State fan, here's what I want to see. I want to see Alabama beat Florida. Florida's gone, 2 losses.
Yeah.
Notre Dame beat Clemson. Clemson's gone, 2 losses. Ohio State run the table, and that'll get them in for sure.
Yeah, they'll be in for sure. Yeah.
And then you're talking, okay, do we look at Florida again or A&M, or depending on what happens in the next few weeks, or do we start looking at Cincinnati and maybe a BYU, probably Cincinnati, and that's the best case scenario for Ohio State, in my opinion, and the Cincinnati. If crazy chaos goes in where Alabama runs table and loses to Florida, and Clemson beats Notre Dame,
Notre Dame
for the table, Ohio State's gonna pray they get in my opinion, and I hope they do. But I can see the arguments. The arguments are there. The wins are there, and the way they're playing.
Oh yeah,
Ohio State was just locking everybody down, but they're just not playing anybody. That's one thing. But they're not. Their defense is very susceptible, as we talked about in the passing game. So, basically, I'll give you my top 5 right now. I like Alabama number 1. I like Notre Dame number 2. Me personally, who's playing the great football right now, I'm going to give it to Florida at number 3, and I'm going to give it to Clemson at 4 with Ohio State 5. Ohio State, I know they're undefeated, but they need to show me something more. And those teams will play each other, so things will happen. They can still get back in.
Right.
I got a number 5 right now, and I'm going to check the comments, see if anybody's blowing me up. Okay, nobody's blowing me up with the comments, so that's good. So I am an Ohio State fan, but I said they're number 5. So what do you got for your top 5?
Well, my top 5, and you and I kind of talked about this the other day. I came out with Florida at number 3, and we talked about that a little bit. So I'm a little bit surprised that you jumped Florida up to number 3. So I see, of course, things are going to change because teams are, like I said, they're going to square off. They're going to play each other, especially if they get into the conference championships. One of my issues has always been if we truly believe in the system that they have, that these are the top 4 teams, top 10 teams, whatever you want to look at. One of the problems I've always had is that you were talking, well, if Clemson lost to Notre Dame twice. Now I'm going in theory that Notre Dame's number 1 and Clemson's number 2. I'm just throwing those numbers out there, and Clemson lose to Notre Dame. My thing's always been, well, shouldn't number 1 beat number 2 or beat number 3? But what we see happen is that team drops to 8 or 9. I've always kind of had a problem with that. Wait a minute, you just lost to the number 1 team in the country, and you dropped 6 spots, 7 spots.
Right.
So I've never really thought that is quite fair. If we're truly saying this team's number 1, this team's number 2, they played each other, they lost by a touchdown. So on the next on the next college football thing, we're looking at them and they're number 9. And I've never really agreed with that. I get the system. The other teams, hey, you had your chance, you didn't beat that team, so everybody else gets another chance. But I've always kind of had an issue with the way that works. But anyway, to get back to my top 5, I have Alabama 1, Notre Dame 2. It's hard to argue with either one of those. I do have Florida at 3. I know that Texas A&M beat them, but we talked about that and how that kind of happened. Keep them off the field, but I'm not trying to knock down Texas A&M. I think Florida is a better team right now today. Number 4, I got Ohio State. Let's face it, they're Ohio State. May not have the resume that they've had, and that's been an issue with them, over the years. But I don't think they're going to have a loss. I think they're going to march through the Big Ten, which I predicted from the beginning, even though they didn't win every game by 21 points, like I said. But I still have them there, and very very close to them. I have Clemson, and of course Clemson and Notre Dame are going to play each other, so that's going to, like you were just saying a little bit earlier, that's going to have a big effect on how that plays out. I think if Ohio State runs a table, which I'm sure that they will, I think that they're probably in. Um, they may be in that fourth spot. They may be in that third spot, depending on how close and how well those championship games go. But it'll be interesting. But anyways, Bama, Notre Dame, Florida, OSU, Clemson. Then I have Texas A&M and Cincinnati right on the outside of that to see what happens. I don't know that Cincinnati will ever get in, but right now that's kind of that's where they're at.
Yeah.
So who says that they shouldn't get that opportunity?
Yeah, I if Cincinnati and A&M played this weekend, I don't know who I'd pick. Let's give them a neutral game. Because obviously home team. It's not so much the crowd this year as it is the travel. But I think it could be a really good game. I don't think either team will blow each other out. But I can't say I know Cincinnati. But now Cincinnati beats an A&M. Let's say if they played them, then you're talking, okay, now they look like they got some confidence. They can play with the Power 5 teams, and I think they can. But to think they can and actually see it is two different things. And so, they got because I think it was last year they went pretty far, but then I think I can't remember they either got beat or just had a really tight game with UCF last year. I think it was where they were blowing everybody else out. And that's no shame because UCF has been a great program the last few years. They beat Auburn a couple years ago in a bowl game. So, but yeah, my thought with Ohio State at 5 is, and a lot of it's the eye test, and a lot of it was based on last week. The best team they played, and they played their defense looked their worst. And so I'm looking at that game thinking, okay, if we swap out Indiana and put in Notre Dame, how bad is it good? How bad, but that doesn't mean they're going to play that way the rest of the way. They could, that could be a shakeup. Hey, you guys get in there and start fixing things they're doing, because those guys are young in the secondary, because none of them were starting last year except for Shaun Wade. And Shaun Wade, he had that nice pick 6, but he's been smoked a couple times the last few weeks, so he's really got to step it up. So, but the opportunity is there. They'll run the table. I do agree with that. Hopefully, I think there might be something with Northwestern. I don't think Northwestern throws the football all that great, so that works well for Ohio State if they play them in the championship game. But they can move up. Obviously, Clemson and Notre Dame are going to play each other. I know what you're saying about losing number 1 loses number 2, and all of a sudden you've got you're number 8. So you're really the worst team. The one year I think Auburn beat Alabama when they were number 1. They jumped to number 5. And I think they ended up getting right back in, and I think they won the national championship that year. But maybe not. But at least they got to it. But the big thing is it's when you lose. Sometimes, like when A&M beat Florida that week, I would have said, "Oh yeah, man, A&M's a much better team than Florida," because they looked at. But since then, man, Florida's just been on a tear. And I talk about it, we agree. If they played that game again, I think they'd win that game, because they're just much better team now. They're playing better. They're all the way around. So,
it's all about that quarterback at Florida,
right? And with 2 law, yeah, exactly. Trask, I think he's definitely one of the Heisman contenders in my opinion. There's 4 or 5 of them, but if Clemson, that's why I have them number 4. They got the 1 loss, and if they get beat, I think they're done. Same with number 3 of Florida. They get beat by Alabama, they're going to be done. And that's 2. It's like that. If they lose that game, A&M, how much are they going to be kicking themselves? They lost the A&M game, because if they lose that, if they're undefeated, you got 2 SEC undefeated teams playing each other for the SEC championship game. It's really hard to keep one of them out, because one of them, if they're undefeated, losing Alabama, but it's not happening. So we got to go with what we got. So it'll be interesting. I'm looking for, as far as things to work themselves out. Let's see LSU beat A&M this weekend. Now, if A&M goes out there and just blows LSU out, I don't know what that tells us at all, because LSU, would have been a whole lot more last year. So I know we're both looking interested in watching the Iron Bowl and, of course, the LSU and A&M game, and we'll see what the rest of I think Northwestern's kind of in a trap game with somebody. I can't remember who they're playing off the top of my head, but You know what? They're playing Michigan State at Michigan State.
Oh yeah, they are. I've seen that.
They could lose that game. I mean, I think they lost the game last year. Of course, they only won 3 games last year.
Right.
You just never know, especially in the Big Ten. That Big Ten West is really weird sometimes. So
it is.
But if Northwestern losing doesn't help Ohio State. But I do agree, if Ohio State runs the table, they should get in, barring some really craziness in the SEC and the ACC with 4 teams and how that all looks. But we'll see. So
right.
All right, man, we're over our time. Looks like we got 3 people tuning in. Hi to you guys, and we got a love from Sherry Cantrell. Do you know her?
Actually, I do.
Okay, excellent.
That would be my wife.
Exactly. I thought you knew her.
Yeah, I do.
She's shooting you some love. So
yeah, there you go.
All right. Well,
somebody's got to, right?
Exactly. All right, man. We'll enjoy the football games. I'm sure we'll talk on Tuesday when the new rankings come out, and I don't know. We'll see if there's any shakeups or not. We know Ohio State ain't moving up.
Well, I wish that. Well, I hate this COVID thing. It's a bad thing, and one of my concerns is that I'm kind of afraid that maybe the way the numbers are on this thing, that maybe we're going to see more of this with affecting teams and coaches and that type of thing. And I really hate to see that for the programs. I hate to see it for the players. So hopefully we put in some prayers and hope that this country comes back from this virus thing, because it's just really rolling right now. And like I said, I hate to see it affect anybody as far as that goes. But the sport that you and I love the most, college football. You hate to see those young men affected by all that too. So, hopefully we can get over the hump here.
Well, I agree. There's been some little talks about, are they going to push things back? And, for the sake of keeping the game, if they're going to cancel anything, then I'd push it back. But otherwise, hopefully they don't have to push anything back and nothing has to be canceled. You sure as heck hope the weeks of all the championship games, we don't have numbers going crazy leading up to championship games, because that just will play an unfortunate role in games that are really crucial at the end of the year. So we don't want to see that. So, but I agree with you. We'll just pray this thing goes as quickly as possible with everything that's happening with the vaccines coming out next month, hopefully, and other stuff. So I doubt we're going to see that, but somebody's going to see it. So hopefully it works. So, all right, sir, enjoy the games. We'll talk during the week, and we'll meet you right back here and everybody at 9:00 for another edition of College Football Corner. All right.
Oh, all right, Fletch. That sounds good. And since it is Iron Bowl week, roll Tide.
All right, buddy. Good luck with Alabama.
All right, we'll see you.
Take care.